What's the strangest kink fetish someone has asked you to be a part of? Not me personally. But I was at a show called Tinder Tales where comedians talked about their online dating experiences. The best one was a girl who was seeing a guy and found out he had a snowsuit fetish. Yes. He liked girls to be dressed in big puffy snowsuits. She said it was the comfiest fetish ever. So I was at a kink party, seeing the shrink wrapping and the staplegoning. And a man came up to me. "Are you drunk?" "No." "Good." He was relieved. "Can you help us?" He led me over to a bound woman, lying there with her arms and legs tied behind her back. We were serving sushi on her, but now the ropes are jammed up with the silks. "Can you get that untangled?" I agreed, and started gently picking apart the ropes and silks. About 3 minutes later, I got things untangled. The man and woman thanked me and wandered off. Got back to a girl's house and she asked what I study at uni. When I replied physics, she then kept on asking me to rail of formulas and was getting increasingly more into it and kept asking me to say more at various parts of the night. Each time after she would tell me how turned on she was. I'll tell you this, when in that position and absolutely smashed, your mind draws a blank. In the end I just started making up. A few days later her physics professor was grading her test, wondering where she came up with some of that. I once dated a girl that was really into cotton balls. She would go into a euphoric state by having dropped on her. She would buy a case of them at a time and just roll around in them for fun. Is your ex-GF a cat? A guy from high school who I didn't speak with at all after graduation messaged me over a year later. He and his girlfriend were looking for a woman to strip naked with them and let them chase her through the woods. I declined. He's a pastor now. A guy wanted me to throw oranges at him and he'd have to pay me $10 every time one hit him in the nuts. I delivered pizzas between the ages of 18-22. Knocked on one door. Man answered. His wife is visible behind him. Nude. Video camera set up on tripod. The husband wanted to film the pizza guy nailing his wife. I demurred. A woman I honestly barely knew wanted me to give her an ear job when we were having sex. Not just kissing and licking. Full on insertion, tongue into ear. So I did it and she loved it. She also insisted on doing it to me. But I didn't enjoy it at all. It was like a warm wet sock going in and out of my ear. Not really exciting. This better not awaken anything in me. Adds bag of oranges to the grocery list. Was involved with a young woman who had a mustard fetish. She would rub herself with it everywhere. Yes, that too. She was really turned on by it. Even the smell of it would send her into a rageful lust. When cleaning one time, turned out she had like 30 used mustard bottles under her bed. She even confessed to applying it to areas when getting dressed because she liked the burning sensation. Incredibly easy to start the engine. Just pay her a condiment. A tweaker asked me if I would light his meth pipe while he smoked it naked. Offered me $40 for every hit I would light. Part of me thinks he was gonna kill me, but I DK because he invited my boyfriend to come along. Speaking as a broke student, I would do this. This seems really lame compared to most of the other comments, but having a girl ask you to slap her across the face while you her is the weirdest feeling. I could see she was hesitant to ask, which made it much easier on me tbh. So I tried my best to indulge her. Started very slowly. Felt weird. Kept going. She loved it. Slapped harder. She's audibly loving it. Slap harder again. Babe, not so hard please. Immediately feel like a psycho. She was incredibly submissive to the point where I could do anything to her, including demand her to take control, and she would. Great sex. I'll skip the long story and just get to the point. A girl I knew genuinely believed she was Jesus Christ reincarnated into a female form. She believed her father in heaven was actually a spider deity whose legs had been plucked off and descended down from the heavens into the form of penises. It was her life mission to find the 8 men on Earth who possessed these magical penises in them and swallow those penises deep into her vagina. Once. And only once. All 8 penises had been in her vagina. Would the veil be lifted from everyone's eyes and the world will see she really is Jesus Christ and everyone on Earth will bow down to her? Yeah. She did a lot of drugs. But I don't think LSD and mushrooms can make someone that crazy. HBO could make 12 seasons out of this. Edit first time silver. Thank you, kind stranger. A male friend told me this story. So I wasn't part of this, but this girl he brought home one night had a RP fetish. When they were getting into it, she straight up told him, "I want you to RP me." And kept telling him no and to stop. But when he actually stopped, she explained that that's part of it. He noped out. No safe word? That's a recipe for disaster. I was on Grindr and an old fat man asked if I wanted to him bareback while he s on my cock. I used to write smut for a living. So I've had a fair number of strange requests for commissions. Most of them were from people who were just looking to talk about their fantasies without ever having the expectation of paying for it. But one guy, very nice, very polite, asked me to write a story about him being sounded by a Hot Wheels car. He wanted the first half of the story to be about his urethra stretching as the car went in. And the second half to be all about the damage the little wing mirrors did to his penis as the car came back out. I politely declined. XGF was a huge Star Wars nerd and wanted to roleplay as Princess Leia. Asked me to wear a Chewbacca mask and make the noise while I ejaculated. I was on gay chat line and someone asked me if I had a dog because he wanted to have sex with a dog. I said I had a Chihuahua. He said that a Chihuahua was too small. So I told him I had 10 and that they had a cumulative effect. He blocked me. Apparently, he didn't have a sense of humor about it. And planned bondage. Ever try to tie someone to a couch with whatever nearby items you can find? While they're getting off on it? I would simply go, finally my bin of random cables and plugs might be useful. Had a girl wanting to kiss me after making me eat butter and ice. It felt like I was kissing a dead grandmother. Or I assume. So no one asked me to be a part of this. But I was a paramedic for years. And we responded to a cardiac arrest at a local chain motel. When we got there, the staff directed us up to the floor where the PT was. When we got off the elevator, the whole floor was packed with people going room to room. Mostly naked. All dressed or painted up as Pokémon. Like legit. With skinny tables in the hallway laid on with food and booze and little blue pills. This very distraught older woman, naked except a yellow tail butt plug and Pikachu face paint, directs us to the nearest room. Where a very large man, with a fabric turtle shell and blasters, painted blue, who's that Pokémon? Is laying on the floor. The most confusing CPR of my life. First, I've never done CPR on a Blastoise. Second, it's made significantly more awkward by the crying plug Pikachu. And third, people were still going at it in various other rooms. It barely even slowed them down. She asked me to call her by another name during sex. Which wasn't so strange at first. Until I found out it was her roommate's name. Not me, but a close friend told me about a group of girls who would lure guys into a sex love triangle of sorts, and if they found a new guy they liked more, the test for him to fit in would be to cislay the other guy with his dick. He would then become the new triangle member. WTF, that means I don't know, but it said up. Literally covering his ass all the time. I had an ex who wanted to shove a ginger root up my ass. I politely declined. She was a lot of fun, but she also had a fetish for getting it by other guys while we were dating, so you know. It's something I would try again, to be honest. Girl I was seeing was into BDSM as a top. We did a scene where I was tied up in the bathtub and forced to drink a lot of liquids, not deathly amount, but about a liter of Gatorade and a 12-ounce bear. She would then edge me among other things, all the while telling me I can't pee till she said I could. When I finally did, it was almost better than some orgasms I had. I posted this in a similar thread, but I think it bears repeating. I met a guy on Tinder. We had an amazing night together. It was just meant to be a hookup. But we had such a strong connection that we kept talking after. He didn't live in the same city as I did. We talked a lot about our kinks and stuff like that. One night he told me that he wanted to watch a dog me. That was too much for me. I politely declined. Then he said if I did it, he'd leave his wife for me. I didn't know he was married. There was a guy in my area on Grindr who would hit you up several times a week, even if you didn't respond. Asking for someone with lactose intolerance to drink a gallon of milk and get him real dirty. I'd always block him, but he'd just as quickly show up with a new account and blow up my inbox. Back before the internet, and I did not know various fetishes. A friend and his girlfriend were staying over. Anyway, they went to bed and I am watching TV. She calls out for me to please come there. To them in their room. I went to the room and knocked on the door and she told me to come in please. I go in and he is tied to a chair and she is in black lingerie and was begging me to her. Writhing on the bed. The guy was a good friend and I had no idea what cuckolding and femdom was back then. I noped out of there and they were so embarrassed they left. And we never got back together. If you want somebody to be kinky with you, these folks. Explain things and get the person's consent before it ruins an otherwise good friendship. Just your usual and spitting on the face stuff. Nothing crazy. Super specific kinks annoy me sometimes. I just want to be two raw animals attacking each other. I don't want to have to burn candle wax on the bottom of your feet while you watch Pokémon PRN and VR goggles in order to get you off. I briefly dated a girl who wanted me to dominate her. Tell her what positions to be in, what to say and when to shut up, etc. When we started, she said no and refused to do any of the stuff I commanded. I was really confused and didn't know whether she wanted me to fight her and force her to do a bunch of stuff while she resisted, or if she had changed her mind, or if I just wasn't giving her the right orders or what. It was incredibly frustrating. I didn't want to just take a stab at ARPing her and hope for the best. So I just switched off completely. Everything about me was a disappointment to that woman. And I tried so hard to be good to her. Dated a girl who loved to be degraded during sex. So I used to tie a belt around her neck and walk her around the room making her bark and lick the floor. Few months back her best friend told me she still talks about it. I had an ex that I'm pretty sure was building up to a pay fetish. She wanted me to skip foreplay and insert without lube because it hurts in a good way. She was slowly adding rough and bondage elements and I'm pretty sure she was headed towards full on break and enter our pay fantasy. Girl asked me to taxpayers her. No regrets. P.S. The link is highly NSFW. I had an African American girlfriend who was very into the whole black excellence thing. She was exceedingly proud of her race. And I supported that wholeheartedly. That being said, when we got into the bedroom, she wanted to do some very strange things that made me very uncomfortable. She liked to act like a poorly educated slave girl. And wanted me to play the part of her master. And degrade her in very racist ways, call her slurs, etc. Outside of the bedroom, she was really cool though. And I look back on the majority of that relationship fondly. I banged a woman that enjoyed having pictures of her childhood home drawn on her back while on all fours swallowing dick. Always permanent marker. Was always gone by the time I saw her again and there was always redness from the washing. She was extremely flexible. I told this once, but I'll do it again. In a shorter version. She had this pay fetish. Bit crazy, but I did once when she came from work. She enjoyed. A couple nights later we were drunk and stuff. She asked me to pay her in the street. Stupid me accepted. We got caught to the cops. They only believed us. She explained everything and showed pics of us as a couple. Not really strange, but the BF is into throat tying. My first GF was a soccer player and relatively strong. One time we'd gone for a pretty lengthy walk. Got to the end of our route. Hung out and talked for a while. Then it was time to go home and I was like, wish we didn't have to walk all the way back. You should totally carry me. Full stop. And it was clearly a joke. Until next thing I know she's straight up putting me on her back. She gave me a pretty lengthy piggyback ride through her neighborhood. Turns out she was really into the idea of being able to pick up her taller, heavier boyfriend. And from then on, and sometimes in private, she'd pick me up when we were making out. So I guess she had a strength fetish or something. I didn't mind though. She had a somewhat muscular build and I thought it was hot that she enjoyed showing it off. I dated a man a while back who took interest in my old self-harm scars. He wanted to cut me while we had sex. He insisted he had done it before and could do it safely. I told him no. But he'd still bring it up a lot. He later confessed he had never done it before and he was hoping I'd agree so he could try it out. I'm glad I don't see him anymore. I was at a party once and this cute girl's friend who I had been flirting with was egging me on to keep chugging beer Jaeger. I was intoxicated and she told me her friend was into vomit. Like the concept of me puking would get her in the mood. I thought this was possibly the best drunk troll I'd ever heard and went up to the girl I was flirting with to laugh about how her friend almost bamboozled me. Very awkward convo after realizing she was actually into vomit and now at her friend and me for bringing this up in front of her other friends. Oof. I've done lots of kinky and as a female dom you just tend to get lots of rather odd requests. Strangest one so far would be that one guy who wanted me to pretend I'm his daughter. Already been eyed, nope. Tie him to a heater on full blast in the summer, mind you, and lick off his sweat while telling him was a good daddy he was for keeping me hydrated. There are some strange people. Man. An ex-student asked me to be her daddy. Was her mom good looking? Pretty kinky myself, but I was dating a girl who was eventually my subdom. We switched roles often. She said she wanted really rough sex where she had no choice. At this point we had only used our safe word or had to stop her a couple times. She wanted no safe words or anything and wanted me to slap her harder, use the flogger and canes harder, and wanted to stretch her ass with our biggest DLDO and plug. I tried to negotiate that we absolutely need a safe word. But she said that's the point though. I want you to keep going after I tell you to stop. Told her I don't feel comfortable with that. We had developed a lot of trust in our relationship, both on and out of kink, and I felt like this could potentially betray all the trust that we had established. She ended up breaking it off with me a week later and sometime last year she left the kink world. Chick liked being degraded, but apparently telling her the reason her father killed himself is because she's a dumb is too far. Yeah. You like that? You lying? I studied photography for a while. So as a side scrabble I'd make portraits, group photos, that stuff. One time I was asked to do a shoot involving 2 naked girls, laxatives, and a cemetery. I respectfully declined. My post might be the mildest here, but my ex and I were messing around in the kitchen once and I sprayed some whipped cream on her neck. Proceeded to lick it off and I guess she really liked that. She took the can from me and sprayed some more on her breasts, and you know where that's going. Pretty much every time we ate in the next week she wanted whipped cream involved or mayo. She asked me to do several wild stuff, but that was the funniest one. The most extreme thing my ex and I did with a can of whipped cream was just share one and eat the whole thing. Major stomach aches on both sides. Can't recommend. Someone once tried to convince me to do an inflation fetish RP with them. To make it worse, I was like 12 at the time and told them so. They persisted until I just logged off. Not sure why anyone would be into keeping track of the sustained increase in the general price level of goods and services in an economy over a period of time as a result fetish, or why your age would matter in this. I'm no longer on FetLife after I got asked if I was into K9. That was a hard pass and a block to the first person to ask. Second person. I deleted my account. Edit. Spelling is hard after a 12-hour night shift. Vampire roleplay. Yeah. I used to have some leather gloves with tiny needles in the fingers. So when you spanked someone with them on, it drew blood because the spanking naturally draws the blood to the surface, but without leaving any lasting scars. They were amazing for vampire blood fetishes. Plenty. But first one that comes to mind is one time a guy asked me if he could suck my cum out of my girlfriend's PSSY. I had a GF who liked to act like a toddler. It was fun and cute the first time, and I would have been fine with it if it were just a role-playing thing she did once or twice a year. Couple times a month thought washed any cute charm away. He wanted to get off to photos of my tongue. Just my tongue. I declined and he got mad. So I blocked his number because that. Later on, a friend of mine had gotten his Snapchat and he was requesting videos of her licking my face. She said no. Dude on Grindr wanted me to castrate him. Impregnation kink, but with a twist. He wanted me to raise our baby as his personal sex slave. I note out of there. You did it, you won. Most head up kink on this thread. I hope he never has kids. Woman I met wanted me to have sex with her friend who had severe cerebral palsy. Said she got off on it. But I suspect she was just trying to give her friend a solid. Did the deed. But never hooked up with woman number 1. This guy wanted to watch me the living crap out of his girl. I opened this thread thinking I'd post my story about the girl who wanted to make a plaster of Paris mold of my erection to mount on her wall with the others. Then I read the comments to find that I've been that guy requesting those specific weird kinks which up until now I assumed were perfectly normal. I'm starting to see why that girl thought I'd be up for the job. Not me. But my friend's ex used to casually talk about Hitler, the Holocaust. One time I had consensual sex in the missionary position. I haven't read the other comments yet, but this is probably pretty tame in comparison. But one time during sex a girl just shoved her tongue right in my ear hole without warning and completely latched on. It was like she was trying to clean it. It was a horrible experience. I like to be choked, a little. Just enough to put in nice pressure on my throat. Also, when I give my BF blowjobs, I really like the way it feels on the roof of my mouth. So instead of typical head bobbing blowjobs you see in most P-Renos, he pretty much just has my face while I lay slightly upright in bed. It feels much better than usual blowjobs. And my jaw doesn't get tired as fast. Also, when my mouth gets dry, I ask him to spit in my mouth. It's super SI. My GF has a Nazi fetish. To clarify, she is a good person and knows they are horrible. But she finds the uniforms and German accent very SI. I mean, they are definitely history's best dressed villains. Someone asked me for a hug once. My ex said she was into S&M BSDM play. But we never really did it. Instead, she had me choke and slap her during sex. Even though I was new to it, I liked it enough. Wasn't too big on the slapping as I'm not a violent guy. And knew to put pressure on the sides of her neck and not her windpipe. But the more often we did it, the more she would request me to get more violent. Like bite so hard to break the skin. Punch her in her face and gut as hard as I could. Let all your stress out on me. Don't hold back. Beat me to a pulp. Edit. It really reminds me of Sato's aunt from the anime Happy Sugar Life. And ironically enough, we started dating when that anime came out last year and we watched it together. I had a friend who was a single mother of a 6-month-old baby. She wanted to sit on my face while she breastfed the baby. Capital I. In my mind, that seemed like it could be considered some kind of sexual abuse to the baby. So I did not oblige despite how attracted to her I was. I asked her to never ask another person to do that, as it seems pretty up to me. Am I wrong? Sounds harmless sort of, but yay. She's involving her baby in a sexual fantasy. Pretty ed.